When we say jewelry, we might think of sparkle, luxury, or love. But there was a time when jewelry served not beauty, but loss, pain, and remembrance. These were mourning and memorial jewels, a special type that shaped European culture, art, and social customs for centuries. These were not just personal keepsakes, but objects that also carried social messages. They showed the depth of grief, the wearer's religious beliefs, and even their social standing. A carefully chosen design, a specific color, or a certain material all held a secret meaning that people at the time understood perfectly. In this video, we're going to dive deep into this world. We'll look at how these pieces of jewelry changed over the centuries, what purpose they served in different eras, and what technical, aesthetic, and emotional value they held. Death has always been a part of human life, and the ways we show grief and remembrance tell us just as much about a certain time as clothes or paintings do. The history of mourning jewelry goes all the way back to the Middle Ages. Back then, the focus wasn't on remembering the dead, but on the fact of death itself, and that it's something we can't avoid. Memento mori jewelry, which had skulls, bones, hourglasses, and Latin warnings, reminded the people who wore them that life doesn't last forever. These messages were often written in Latin on the pieces, like memento mori, which means remember that you must die, or pulvis es et in pulverem reverteris, meaning you are dust, and to dust you shall return, or vita brevis, ars longa, which means life is short, art is long. Such phrases not only expressed religious devotion, but also served as a kind of moral compass. They warned people to live a moral, moderate life, as death could knock at any moment. The jewelry, therefore, primarily did not serve a decorative function, but conveyed a moral message. By the 16th and 17th centuries, these pieces of jewelry became increasingly popular, especially in the form of rings. Over time, however, the focus shifted, and alongside symbols of death, personal mementos also appeared: names, dates, tiny locks of hair. The jewelry was no longer just a general warning, but became an intimate object tied to specific individuals. This intimacy and personalization deepened even further in the following centuries. From the 18th century onwards, mourning jewelry was crafted with increasingly complex styles and symbolism. It spoke not only of grief, but also of social belonging, religious conviction, and cultural values. Behind every piece lay a story, and these stories together drew the emotional map of an era. The evolution of different types of memorial jewelry was closely linked to historical events, social changes, and artistic movements. Hair jewelry played a special role during this period. The physical stability of human hair, the fact that it does not easily decay, allowed a tangible part of the deceased to remain. In the Victorian era, hair jewelry making grew into its own refined art form. Artisans used various techniques, including braiding, weaving, and the special palette work method, where chopped hair was mixed with paint to create miniature landscapes. Hair was placed under glass in rings, brooches, pendants, often in the form of flowers or geometric patterns as a visible, preserved memory. These pieces of jewelry were worn according to very strict social rules. In the first year of mourning, only simple black-framed hair jewelry was allowed. However, later on, more colorful and complex pieces were also accepted. It is important to know that hair jewelry was not only related to mourning. They often served as tokens of love or friendship. Victorian women traditionally grew their hair their whole lives, and female friends exchanged hair curls as keepsakes before long journeys. Schoolgirls collected hair curls in their memory books, while lovers gave each other jewelry made from their hair as a promise of love. In Jane Austen's novel, Sense and Sensibility, for example, Edward Ferrars wears a ring decorated with braided hair, which serves as a symbol of a secret engagement. The exchange of a hair curl was a sure sign of an upcoming engagement, and Prince Albert gave Queen Victoria a bracelet into which a new locket with the baby's hair was placed each time one of their children was born. The making of hair jewellery was also practiced at home. The book, Elegant Arts for Ladies, published in 1856, even included instructions for making earrings, for which the hair of a loved one or fiancé served as the base material. Victorian women used two main techniques for making hair jewellery at home. The palette work method, where hair was treated with adhesive and shaped onto flat surfaces, then placed under glass in rings and brooches, and simpler braiding techniques, which only used ribbon and basic tools. Godey's Ladies' Book, a women's magazine, regularly published hairwork guides and advertisements in the 1850s, which included the necessary tools, such as thin wires, wooden spools, and other supplies, so that ladies could learn this delicate craft at home. Girls and women learned the art of hair braiding and weaving from each other, or from these magazines, which required patience and significant manual dexterity. The changes in mourning jewellery clearly show how society and philosophy changed their views on death. In the 17th century, memento mori was still very popular, but by the 18th century, the Enlightenment brought new symbols to life. Motifs that were once openly dark, like skulls and skeletons, were replaced by classical symbols from ancient times: urns, obelisks, weeping willows, and figures of grieving women. These were no longer meant to scare people, but instead showed empathy and dignity. This change truly showed the humanistic way of thinking about death during that time. It focused on people's feelings and natural grief, instead of the religious judgments that came before. In this approach, the urn motif became one of the most important symbols, which, referencing ancient burial traditions, symbolize the immortality of the soul and victory over death. It was often placed on a pedestal, with mourning figures or plant motifs arranged around it. The urn was often the central element of the mourning scene, with which the mourning figure directly interacted. For example, she might lean on it, sit beside it, or simply look at it. The weeping widow figure was one of the most distinctive motifs in 18th century mourning jewellery, following the idealistic traditions of ancient art. These female figures appeared dressed in classical Greek-Roman attire, with draped robes that emphasized the dignified nature of human grief. The figure did not represent a specific person, but embodied the universal concept of idealized grief. This female figure could have been the Madonna, but was more often considered simply the embodiment of emotion. The use of the widow figure in mourning jewellery was also socially significant, as it reflected the position of 18th century women in mourning culture. According to ancient traditions, women could express their emotions more easily than men, for whom public weeping was unacceptable. This cultural norm explained why the female figure became a symbol of mourning in mourning jewellery. Another iconic motif of the era was the weeping willow. Its long drooping branches created a perfect visual parallel with human grief, as if nature itself was weeping with the mourner. The willow was often combined with an urn or tombstone, creating small yet complex mourning scenes on the surface of the jewellery. The roots of the motif go back to biblical quotes, but the intertwining of nature and emotion made it truly popular. The technical craftsmanship of 18th century mourning jewellery also reached a very sophisticated level. The technique of enamel painting allowed for detailed landscapes and figural scenes to be depicted on the surface of rings, pendants, and brooches. Motifs drawn with gold contours on a black background created a particularly elegant effect, while pieces with a white background were made in memory of children or unmarried individuals. The urn, the weeping widow, and the weeping willow motifs combined to allow for truly complex stories to be told through mourning jewellery. These small works of art were not only ways to show grief, but also real-life examples of the 18th century neoclassical style and way of thinking. The meaning of these symbols went far beyond just being pretty decorations. These pieces of jewelry showed the humanistic values of the Enlightenment, the changing relationship with nature, and the right to grieve individually in 18th century European society. The use of colors in mourning jewelry also followed strict rules. Black enamel was used for mourning a married person, while white enamel signified the death of children or unmarried individuals. Pearls symbolized tears, and various gemstones like jet, onyx, or garnet each carried special unique meanings. However, keepsake jewelry was not exclusively a means of remembering the deceased, but also an expression of romantic relationships and friendly bonds. From the late 18th century, lover's eye or eye portrait jewelry became particularly popular, which depicted only the eye of the beloved person. Miniature portrait painting flourished in the 18th and 19th centuries in the making of memorial jewelry. These small paintings were made with watercolor on ivory plates and depicted the person with incredible detail. However, miniature portraits were not only used in mourning jewelry, but could also be made in memory of living persons, for example, before long journeys or on special occasions. Eye portrait jewelry was a truly special type of miniature painting. These lover's eye pieces only showed a part of the eye, often including the eyebrow and the skin around it. The realistic look of eye portraits often made people feel a bit uneasy because they were so lifelike. People often wore these secretly, like hidden under clothes. This made the memory of a relationship both personal and private, as only the wearer knew it was there. The framing of miniature portraits was also done with great artistic care. The frames, which were made of gold or silver, were often decorated with diamonds, rubies, sapphires, or natural pearls. Often a lock of hair was placed in the back of the frame to make the keepsake even more personal. The decline of miniature portrait painting began in the mid-19th century with the spread of photography. Photographs were cheaper and quicker to produce, gradually replacing hand-painted miniatures. Although photography revolutionized the way we remember, the intimate artistic quality of handmade portraits slowly faded into the background. Technological advancements opened up new possibilities, but at the same time, an era came to an end, an era in which the tools of remembrance were crafted with artisanal precision, personal presence, and emotional depth. At the same time, another type of jewelry became popular. These were romantic memory pieces that helped keep friendly and family bonds strong. They often had braided hair, tiny portraits, or personal words. These things made the emotional connections between living people stronger. Another special type of mourning jewelry from that time was Berlin iron jewelry. During the Napoleonic Wars, the Prussian royal family asked people to give their gold jewelry to help pay for the army. In return, they received black iron jewelry with the words, "I gave gold for iron." From this patriotic gesture, a new meaning for iron jewelry emerged. The use of Berlin iron jewelry as mourning jewelry naturally arose from its black color. These pieces of jewelry were primarily worn during periods of mourning as their matte black surface met the expectations of a grieving society. Their style was initially neoclassical, then incorporated natural motifs, and later adopted Gothic elements. The social importance of iron jewelry was that it made mourning jewelry more accessible to the middle class, thus making remembrance more democratic. Iron, as a material, also became a symbol of strength, loyalty, and perseverance. As we can see, mourning and memorial jewelry meant much more than simple ornaments. These small yet meaningful objects have told stories of loss, loyalty, love, and societal expectations for centuries. They stood at a unique intersection of personal grief, collective memory, and artistic expression. Whether it's a locket holding a lock of hair, a secret eye miniature, or a piece of Berlin iron jewellery, these jewels formed a bridge between life and death, past and present, individual and community. Today, we rarely wear mourning jewellery in the traditional sense, but the human desire behind it, to preserve someone or something forever, has not changed. The way we remember may have changed, but its importance lives on today. If you enjoyed this journey through history, culture, and the intersection of jewellery art, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share the video with anyone else who might be interested in this fascinating, often forgotten world. And tell me in the comments if you have a memento or family jewellery that holds special meaning for you. Thank you for joining me today. See you in the next video.